I would like to call the August 11th, 2011 Conservation Commission meeting to order. Time is approximately 7:04. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is roll call. Could I have everyone starting from Wayne? We'll just work our way around and say who's here.
Wayne, present.
Bruce Vecto.
Valerie Shelton.
Drew Kiefaber.
Jeff Goldnoff.
Brad Pearson, present.
Jessica Vesey.
And Jim Bergeron has some other commitments this evening and is excused from the meeting. Public comments. There's no public here this evening, so I don't think we'll have any public comments. If anyone were to come later in the evening, we'd welcome their comments then. Next up is the approval of the minutes from our July 14th meeting. First, I'd like to say a hearty thank you to both Kathy Castle for drafting them and Valerie Shelton for making revisions and getting them all done. So does anyone have any additional comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Wynn. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is the treasurer's report, and copies of the treasurer's report were given to us and handed out. So, Jeff, would you like to speak to that for us, please?
I made it to the finance department a little late in the month to go over the changes. I spoke with Don Parnell, and I left a copy of my notes from last time. And we'll see what happens. I hope to get in to visit this coming month as well, to try to actually sit down and talk with them about that. They were pretty busy. They're in the middle of their audit, so they did not have time to meet with me. But other than that, yeah, you can see what it is.
Are there any specific issues that you'd like to discuss with him or that we might want to know about?
It's most of it was just the format and the layout of the report itself. To have it more ledger style and seeing expenditures and incomes together, and having labels on any incomes that we have, so we know kind of what the deposits are. Don briefly commented that I thought that might be difficult.
Why would that be difficult?
He didn't have time to get into it with me really, so I just, hopefully I'll meet with him again there, and not with Don, but with his name escapes me again. But
Carol, perhaps?
with Carol, yes. Carol was on vacation, and hopefully she'll have more time to sit down and speak with me about the changes. But I left a copy of the notes with them, actually. So.
In the notes about the land use change tax.
I
It's in
did.
there, right?
I did. Yeah. Yep. Yes, the Hickory Pond and the Tucker property were both. There's a copy of these notes from last time. So.
Drew, could you just update my memory here? On May 25th, there's a payment to Sauhegan Valley Agriculture.
Aquaculture, yep.
Could you just...
That's the money for the fishing derby.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And then the one immediately after that is for
Is the,
the scholarship.
Scholarship, okay.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, sure.
I just didn't recognize the name.
Yeah.
Is the balance in the Shanda Fund actually what it says? Still have that much money in there?
I would believe so, if that's what this says.
Through May anyways.
Yes, through the date at the top there, through 6/30/11. I did ask about that date, and that is behind because of what we suspected, that they haven't closed out books, so
Okay.
it can't be up to the minute.
Right.
I can definitely bring that up too, just to make sure. Is there a reason to suspect it's incorrect?
Well, no, there was an effort being made to
Train it.
bring it to zero, and I thought we were nearer zero than that, but if not, that's great.
Yeah. I know that we had appropriated money to be used out of it for plantings that hasn't been drawn out
That hasn't
yet.
been drawn out.
Right.
There's about
So-
$250, I think, that we,
Right, so I guess
sometime
that's.
in May or April, we,
Right, I guess that's something that would be worthy keeping track of too, I guess. If we've appropriated, can we accidentally over-appropriate out of that fund by saying, here's we can take $250 out for plantings, and we did that 2 months ago. If 6 months down the road, something comes up, and
I think we
take
just take it out of the general fund, well, our
Right.
other funding.
Right, but as long as we
The same thing.
remember.
The same thing
It's
will
like-
come up with the matching
right.
funds that Drew sent the email.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the only concern would be if our motion were worded such that we said the money was specifically to come from the Shanda Fund.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And the money wasn't there. I think that would be the only way we would potentially get into trouble there.
Okay, and then later, if someone said, okay, I need that $350 for plantings, you could say, okay, we'll take it out of the general fund because there's only $200 left.
Yeah, which presumably would require another motion, or
Right.
a separate motion.
Okay,
Or maybe we make a motion that like if we want to close out this fund and transfer it over to the general fund, we can make a motion to do that. And then, as part of that motion, to any previous authorized expenditures out of the Shanda Fund, that where the motion would be that would be approved to be paid out of the general fund. Because if the idea is to spend that down, we're still going to be spending money on the Shanda Park. It's
Right.
just going to come out of the general fund.
And the only reason we kept it, I don't know if that was, might have been before it's right about your time. The big donations from the Masons statewide and actually national came in, and Fred, not Fred, I'm sorry, Will Hamill kept it all as one account, so they could keep track and send the thank yous out, and we thought appropriate to make sure that all that money went to the park and not be.
right.
Has that been expended? And then, because we were also putting like the local money in here, and any kind of contributions that people were giving us.
For that, but I think that would have to change in later. People like Loco and other community people that donate to the park will
Yeah, we already
probably
had
out
a
of.
motion that was going to go to the general fund.
Right.
from that point.
You're right,
That's one thing, but.
So we should just expend this.
right.
And if we're going to
And
do
there's
work on
plenty
the
of
seawall,
repairs
it's going to be
gone.
expended.
In a flash.
Plus.
Actually, I did ask about the conservation maintenance fund as well, and he didn't say anything really. I think he was he didn't answer, really.
We thought about standing there.
Right.
Pretty much
Back
the same.
Many years ago.
Pretty much the
Right.
same answers that I got when I was a treasurer,
Right.
many years ago. What?
Just to see.
Didn't the Conservation Commission actually used to have their own bank account, like didn't go?
I don't
think when my
remember
father
that.
was here, that's what they
Maybe
did.
that was before my time.
Right. They
Yeah,
just
but
give us their
then-
own books and,
That's probably before the,
or the audit.
Before the audit.
Well, before there was,
BA.
the transfer tax went into effect. You think?
Oh, the land use change tax, sure.
So is the thought that the only reason that they're labeling that just so that they can keep track of the fact that the Conservation Commission made those withdrawals from the general fund? That there's not actually a conservation maintenance fund per se.
It's all in
Out
one
there.
account, and they had troubles making two accounts, the way it was explained to me.
Right, and we had wanted them to look into setting up like a conservation endowment fund, and then we were gonna, transfer the interest on that over to maintenance, so that we always had, some, fund there that we could fall back on in case there was a land purchase or something of that nature, and then just use the interest out of it. We just never heard back on whether or not they were, they were supposed to go to the DRA and up to the state revenue people to see how we could do that. And that's it may not, this probably doesn't go back far enough, but we probably should at least pull that motion out, because that really was how we wanted to establish the accounts and the accounting.
That came up when Charlie Smart was on the commission. That was a few years back. We came up with that idea. And we could never get the finance committee to do it that way, for whatever reason. I guess it's too complicated.
Okay.
But you're making progress, Jeff.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda is committee reports. Since our town councilor is not with us this evening, he's excused from our meeting, we won't have anything from there. Valerie, do you have anything from the planning board?
Sorry, huh? Well, we adopted the Chapter 6, the Economic Development section of the master plan last week. And we had the initial stormwater regulations with site plan review, and Jessica, you're on that one, right? So maybe I'll just let Jessica report on that.
Okay.
But we did have our first presentation
To
of
the
it.
planning board, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I know, because I've been basically not here for a month. Not even. or
Okay,
even
so the
really
planning board
checking
did
email,
discuss,
so-
and we did receive it. Bill Archieri did a very nice presentation, great job by the committee, absolutely. So, we're excited about getting that work. The next step for the planning board is for all of us to really review it, and then it'll be on September's agenda to provide any comments back to the committee. I think the idea there's the goal is that the committee would have it back to the planning board for October. I think you have an extension on the grant
Yeah, I think
till
through November, yeah.
So if there's any other changes.
Okay, great.
But it really is a great document. Appreciate all the committee's work on that.
Okay, great. Okay. Next is the chairman's report.
Done with.
One thing I'd like to speak to there is when I picked up the mail yesterday, there is a standard dredge and fill application that was in our mailbox, which I haven't quite figured out when this was actually dropped off. I think it was fairly recently. But this is from the it's from Mark West on behalf of the Nature Conservancy. I think I've sent some information out to the commission members related to this. In essence, the Nature Conservancy has purchased a piece of land on Bayview Drive. I believe the address is 14. And the plan is that there's a small camp and associated outbuilding on the property. And this is an application to remove those buildings from the property.
I thought they did that months ago.
I'll speak to it. The Conservancy bought other properties in the same location a few years ago, and of the, I'm going to say maybe 10 lots they bought, little tiny lots, like, 0.2 acres to 0.4. 2 of those lots had homes on them, the smaller camps that were renovated, and that's what was before us that those have been taken down. The old Zook
And these are
and
new
Pittman
lots
property.
that they bought?
Then this, there was one piece that was in between the sections they had already bought, and the landowner at the time they were doing all this, didn't want to sell. And then the family has since sold that to the Conservancy. And so this will really make a whole contiguous line off of Bay Road, and I'm going to call it the Pittman, the Zook Cove, or the old Randall Farm, where that cove is. They don't own the point, that's still privately owned. And then on the backside, it comes into the Durham town line, all of the waterfront there.
Is that the Atherton
The
property?
Atherton property,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So they did finish that purchase directly with the Atherton family, and they want to, as they did with the other two, want to remove that structure.
Okay, so Val, you seem to be pretty good at this, so I'm going to ask. This is a standard dredge and fill application. The town received it on August 3rd.
Mhm.
How long do we have to comment on it?
30, standard dredge and fill? I
Yeah.
think DES has like 60 days on that, don't they, Jeff? Do you recall? It's not expedited. Expedited is 30 days with Conservation Commission support.
Yeah.
On a standard dredge and fill, there's really no input by Conservation Commission other than we can provide comments. But if it's expedited, then if we support it, it gets expedited.
Okay.
This is going to fall into the full-blown thing because of the location, filling in the basement and all that.
Okay. So then, so based on that, it would seem to me it would make sense to try and have a technical review committee, have a couple of folks go over this. We could talk about it at our next meeting. Get input from the technical review committee at our next meeting, and then make some evaluation and submit appropriate paperwork to DES.
I think that makes sense.
Is everyone agreeable to
I-
that? I would prefer to do that than try and
Sure.
look it over and discuss it
Mhm.
this evening. Okay. So then my follow-up question is, do we have volunteers who would be interested in looking through the application and being part of the technical review committee?
I could do that.
Yeah.
So we have Fred,
You're
Jeff,
doing
and,
Yeah, we can do it right after the
That's
meeting.
Right.
yeah, that would be fine too,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, great. Yeah, let's do that. Thank you. Put that up there. I think that's the only, we've received some other letters. The DES Wetlands Bureau sent us a letter saying that they received our letter related to the work to be done at 4 Bay Road, the dredge and fill for underneath the former Selectwood warehouse building. We get a letter saying they received
They
our letter.
received that letter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's that sort of stuff. We did receive, the New Hampshire Local Government Center is sponsoring the 24th Annual Municipal Volunteer of the Year Awards, and I have a little card here for that, so if there's anyone that we think should be nominated as a Municipal Volunteer of the Year Award, there's information here for how we can do that, so anyone who has anyone in mind, feel free to contact me after the meeting and we can go over that information as needed and appropriate. I believe that is it for Chairman's Report stuff. So next up would be old and new business. We'll march down through the ones that we have on the agenda here, and then there's some additional ones that I need to add on. First, the invasive species management at Wigan Farm. That's this coming Saturday from 9 to 12. One thing I would note there is, I know for myself, driving out to Wigan Farm, there's a road race that starts behind the high school at the recreation center. and then comes out to 152 and loops around town that starts at 8:30. So I have to get myself by there well before 8:30, or else I'll be taking the longer route out to the Wigan farm. And I suspect I'm not the only one who's in that situation, but be aware of that. It may cause cause an interruption on anyone's efforts to try and get there on
So-
Saturday morning.
Should we just try to move it up? Oh, keep it at 9?
No, let's leave it at 9. Yeah.
So what's the best way to get, for people to go? Because, you know, it's been posted for the public. and everything.
Yes, I would say for members of the public, if you're running into a traffic situation, one option is to go to 108, go down
Ash Swamp
108
Road.
to Ash Swamp, and then cut over to Grant.
There's signs up on Ash Swamp. Is it coming down Ash Swamp Road? There's
Oh, the race
blue
shouldn't
signs with
be.
arrows and sticks. Maybe it's
That
a
might
detour.
be for Old Homes.
It's a detour for Old Home Days, maybe.
Oh, that
right.
could be,
We've got
yes.
both.
Okay.
Because, yeah, Saturday morning is also Old Home
Well,
Day.
it is gonna be a winding
Which-
drive
yes.
from Bay Road.
Yes. Okay, so that's one thing related to invasive species management. The next thing, I've been in contact with the folks at the Great Bay Natural Resource Center. I'm not sure I have the phraseology right. With regard to borrowing weed wrenches. I haven't quite made the final contact that I need to, but it sounds like it's a go. We should be able to pick them up tomorrow, and I hope to be able to do that.
If for some reason that doesn't work out, do we have other tools that we could bring to still do it, or? I personally don't have any
Yeah, I mean,
appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know.
me personally, I have shovels and pry bars and things
Yep.
of that nature.
So we'll go with it
We could,
either
yeah,
way.
we could make some progress.
Okay.
But hopefully,
Those clippers we need if we don't have the pullers.
yes, clippers and pullers.
And you want probably no power tools.
Yes, power tools, no power tools.
No chainsaws?
Hopefully, we don't need them.
Wynn's bringing his chainsaw.
Oh, no.
We're gonna put
That's-
him over.
that's- I'm okay with that.
Nope. Last time we did this, we
Yeah, no, I mean, especially the autumn olives and,
how you gonna pull an autumn olive out of the ground? You got a root system like a
I see
spider
Wynn
web.
brings his chainsaw.
Yeah, I
I'm
can't
okay
see
with
doing
that.
this without a chainsaw.
I'm okay with that.
Unless you're gonna just take the small, stuff
Well, yeah, I mean,
the size of that.
I think we pull as much as we can. The weed wrenches will pull out, something as big as my arm.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
But it's just a matter of whether or not you
Yes.
can get into it.
If you can get a grip
Around
on
the
it,
edge and then,
it's basically a 6-foot lever arm, and the more you pull on it, the more it clamps on the trunk.
But one of the problems with autumn olive is it comes up like this in a group. It's not a single stem.
Yes, that makes it more difficult.
Much more difficult.
I wholeheartedly agree.
That was,
Prepare to
a
get some
chainsaw would
ticks.
open that
And,
up.
and remember,
prepare to get some ticks.
we will not get
Good
all of the invasives that are there. From my perspective.
You could be
if
there
we
a
can-
week and
Right,
get 'em.
from my perspective, if we can get something started and make some progress in a particular area, that would be a good start, and we can build on that as we go on in time. On that same subject and topic, I've been in communication with Rick Molaskey of the Public Works Department. His suggestion is that we make a pile in the field and have a burn in the winter. Just pile everything up in the field and burn in the winter.
So do we need some
So
tarps?
it's-
Just to haul stuff over to the pile?
That would be, well, here's the thing, like, if they've gone to fruit, which some of them have already, you either need to, like, put all the fruiting things in a plastic bag and haul them up there that way, or put them on the tarp and make sure they're not gonna fall off and leave a trail.
Yeah, I'll bring the tarps.
Most of it's in the,
But like buckthorn is fruiting, right?
yeah.
Probably.
I personally don't, you can, hauling brush with tarps is not the easiest thing, especially if they're, 12-foot long buckthorn trees. I mean, you can place it on the tarp and do it. I've always bundled the stems and hauled brush. I don't know if, do you think dispersal of the seed is gonna be an issue in the field? Where
I
it's,
do, yeah.
where it gets mowed yearly?
Well, I think they would mow them down, that's a good point, but.
And then they
but
would
we-
mow
but-
it and mow it and mow
But it's just
it.
more like woody stems in the field that you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise and don't need to deal with as the
Ri-
mower, you know what I mean? Possibly, anyways.
Possibly. I just didn't know if they would actually take enough that you'd have a sprout one year and you'd kill it. That was a single sprout that's only lived 6 months, strong enough to survive to the next year. We're just gonna get single sprouts once in a while. But we can.
It would-
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say it's, since we're trying to minimize the number of invasives there, it would behoove us to do what we can to
Right.
Just to be
make sure we're
cautious
not spreading
anyways.
seeds. But I'm sure not everything is gonna be in fruit, so
Right.
I'm sure there's some that we wouldn't need to put on
Right.
tarps to transport to
Right, right.
a burn pile. So I think we, kind of do as appropriate based on the situation at hand. Okay, so I think that's all I had for there. Does anyone have anything else related to the invasive species management at the Wigan Farm for Saturday?
Just the only other thing would be just the point to focus on for the removal, like.
I'm sorry, for where?
To put like the area, the specific area to focus on removal.
We had
Yeah,
talked
where we
be-
gonna start?
We had talked before about along the wall there.
Right.
Which is really good, and then,
Between the wall and the major tree line, kind of like where the trail crosses the wall. The trail comes along the wall. If you're going
where we
the
took the
direction
walk
it tells you
that
to go,
day.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
like takes a right through the wall, through a break in the wall. And there's the major tree line, and then there's kind of the scrubby area between the wall and the major tree line, where we were looking
Down by
at-
the pond, you mean?
I think the fellow who walked us around was recommending was actually the meadow side of the wall, so that we would prevent them from encroaching further into the meadow as the primary focus area, and then we could expand from there if we had conquered those, so to speak.
Okay. The met.
And maybe if there's like isolated clumps in the meadow itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the only isolated clumps that we looked at that had them were the two down in the wetland.
And that,
And
I,
then
yeah.
there was, because along that stone wall, they mow really close to it.
Mhm.
And there's
But that was-
there's a lot of very, very, very small invasives coming up there.
Okay.
Like a lot of like, because they mow there, there's a constant seed deposit from the stuff on the other side of
That's
the
true,
wall.
it is mostly on the other side, you're right.
Yeah, it's
So-
mostly just on the, on the path down to the pond, basically, or along to the bench.
So,
To
yeah,
the
I mean,
bench over there. That's kind of where I was thinking of, was that corner where
Yeah.
that big European barberry was. That was kind of tucked away, and then around through there was a lot of buckthorn and some autumn olive, and then the giant wiguronimus. And I was just thinking where to go tomorrow afternoon when I head out to Flag, if anybody wants to come as well. I'll be hopefully at 5:30, I'll be going over there.
Flag the areas.
Yeah. Does anybody prefer a color, so that in case we don't get to them, it's not too, maybe,
No.
okay.
Whatever you have is great.
Some green, I guess. Something. Actually,
Okay, great. Next up is the Shanda Park kiosk. We have received the sign from Infinite Imaging. The Lamprey River Advisory Committee, LRAC, paid for that sign, and they're gonna buy a piece of safety glass to put over it. Basically, that's waiting on me to cut some strips of wood to be able to mount the whole thing. And I hope to have time to do that either this weekend or next week.
What do you need for wood? I can put table saws. Tell
Uh,
me what you need, I'll.
Okay,
Make it
let's,
up.
let's talk about it after the meeting. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, we have to order the glass. The glass company says they can basically deliver it in a day. It's rapid turnover. It's basically a matter of just getting it done. Next item is easement monitoring. I added this one to the agenda because I know last year, at least when we did the easement monitoring on the Nostrum farm, we had said at that time it would probably make more sense to do this more towards the end of the growing season rather than in the winter when we did it last year. And we also tended, last year, due to time constraints, all of our easement monitoring got kind of packed into the end of the year. And it might be wise for us to sort of spread it out a little bit so that it sort of distributes the effort and the burden. So that's why I put that on the agenda, so I'm open to discussion and any sort of suggestions that people have related to that at this point.
Well, some areas are a lot easier to do in the midpoint.
Yes.
Yeah, the,
Typical wet areas, when you can walk across the ice, is a lot easier than sloshing through.
Yes, I agree.
On the other hand, I don't believe that you have to walk the exact line.
just the recommendation on the Nostrum farm was to monitor it during use because of the restrictions relative to the easement.
Yeah, we ran into that because nothing was happening last year when we were there.
And then not knowing really where the agricultural buffer line is. That was the recommendation to have, to have that surveyed and flagged. The boundaries are, he has all those marked beautifully with the fences, and so the only thing that came up in that report was that restriction relative to the buffer of that wetland area coming through.
That was that one little area, right?
From the road and comes right through the right-hand fields.
Okay.
So do we have a suggestion on when would be an appropriate time to do that easement monitoring?
Wicked, you just kind of got to do that in the wintertime.
Yes,
To freeze up.
yes.
Loisel, it wouldn't matter.
Loisel really doesn't matter.
Correct.
That could be done now.
Nostrum, we should talk to them,
Right.
talk to Jeff
Right.
and Renee, and see, because they have animals out there in all the fields, 'cause I'm over there quite often, and they've got a lot of crops and stuff, so we should coordinate with them when we do that one for sure.
And the other, another consideration there, I guess I would say, is that I know last year, they have folks that hunt for deer on that property as well.
Oh, yeah.
So they
Right,
would
so that
prefer
got
if we were
delayed.
not out there during deer season, which, that's fine.
So what about like
So
September?
it may
or
make
early
sense to,
September?
right, it may make sense to try and do that one prior to deer season.
Maybe October.
Well, bow season starts in
September 15th.
September
Yeah,
15th.
so you
But I mean,
If you want to do it during growing season, you can't wait till October. It has to be
I'm thinking September.
Early September.
Maybe is the best time,
latest,
Val?
early September.
I think we want to pull the report and see what the recommendation is in that. And then also, before we
them.
do the monitoring, have that easement area flagged so that we really know what we're looking at. Because we could do all the boundaries, but we couldn't do the buffer. We didn't understand where that line was.
Right.
Do we have a copy of that plan in,
Should be in a file
Yeah,
downstairs.
and I
Okay.
have it online, because I did that right. I did that
Yes, I
first
believe so,
draft.
yes.
Let me look at that when I get back.
or a copy of
Of the,
the survey
The
that
plan
that demarcates
and
the
mhm.
edge of that and says if there's already any monuments around it at corners of it, or
Yeah, it's just.
We
the
may have something downstairs.
Monumentation is in,
and
but
we could
not kind of
check.
getting in between,
yeah.
and the distances off of them.
Yeah.
That make sense?
hmm.
All right, so I'll pull that when I go into the office.
Okay. Yeah, and then if you can just send out whatever you discover, that would be great. Yeah, I'm
And then
I'm
can I-
bringing it up so that
Oh, yeah.
the same thing doesn't happen. Last year we got
Yeah.
a late start, and then it
Oh,
got
yeah.
later, and it got
no,
later.
'cause it's
and-
hunting, or no,
Yeah,
'cause it's
so I'm-
this, or no, 'cause.
I'm trying to shake the tree a little earlier this year.
First weekend of September.
Well, yeah, it somewhat depends on, their availability and what's going on there too.
That was a suggestion.
Okay, and then, yeah, I would suggest, the Piscassic River Loisel property, I think that one we can target in a September, October sort of time frame as well. You know, there's nothing that would inhibit that, I guess I would say. So why don't we think about that as well?
We have to do the, is it Smith Sisters, the nature
Yes.
conservancy? We have to do that as well.
Yes.
We did that before that froze last year. That was okay too. It was just that one wetland that we found a decent way across.
Right. Which, depending on, yeah, on that particular property, depending on what the,
Oh, we have to go
what
with summer.
what the current water level is, would.
Is there someone else to go with us as well? I remember that there was a woman with us last time. and-
No, yeah, you're correct. Holly, I believe it was Holly Green went with us last year.
Right.
She was just trying to get out and see the different properties. It's not a requirement
Okay.
that she do it every year. That was, that property was partially funded through DES grants. And so she was trying to get out and see all the different properties that DES grants have helped contribute to, so that she has a better idea of what's where. And we also had someone from, well, I'm not sure, is that right? Did somebody from Audubon come as well?
I thought there was only one person
I
with us.
think you're
that
right.
was-
I think he didn't make it. But we should contact Audubon, since they're the owner, and make sure that they're available at the time, or, you know, at least aware that we're doing it at that time.
I hate to do this, but can we jump back on Nostrum?
Yes.
About the recommendation to get that area flagged. Does the town have, like, do we, I know that the motion was to actually go out, or the recommendation was to go out and get bids to do the survey work. Does the town have already an established, like, set contractual relationship with a survey company? You know, for a set price, or
I know
does
that.
everything have to go out to bid?
I do
Come
not
on.
know.
I don't know.
I know in the case of, you know, this was many years ago, but in the, as a part of the Open Space Commission's processes, whenever we had surveying done, we requested bids.
Okay. So I'll
Now,
call Ed about that.
those were also more major surveys, for what it's worth.
I would say anytime you've already had a property surveyed recently, the cheapest is typically from the person that did it originally.
Because they already have all the information.
Right. And they put the pins in the ground. And,
Yeah.
yeah, they already have all the information.
Yeah.
And I guess what I was trying to say earlier by asking was if the edge of this area already has pins between them, and they're just like 500 or 600 feet apart through a field, perhaps two of us can go out there and find them and stand on them and see between them
And then measure out the buffer.
and mark. Well, that's why I didn't know if the edge of the buffer had been marked out.
Yeah, that was the problem, just the.
That's what we couldn't tell. From
If it had been marked, it might not have been marked at intervals through that which you could see, but so sometimes the corners of buffers are marked. And that's why I was wondering if you had a plan around that I could just look at quick.
Yeah, okay, so I'll send that over with the report.
So before we hire somebody, are you saying?
That's what I'm saying, I could look at it quick, it would only take a minute to look at to see if it should say right on it that, you know, pins or whatever might have been set at the corners of this already. And
It's a good idea.
just to, it would save us perhaps time.
Great, I'll do
Maybe
that.
money. If that's an option. It might not be, but might as well look at it first.
Right, sure. That makes sense. Okay, so I have, relative to the Nostrum easement, Val, you're gonna do a little research and then
Mhm.
get back to us.
Report back and email Jeff the plan.
Yep. On the Piscassic River Loisel property, we can target a September, October sort of time frame. The Wigan property, we should do in the winter, you know, as late as we reasonably can. And Smith property sometime in the fall. So I don't think we have to set any specific dates today.
How about Schneer? We have to do that?
That's a good question.
Did we have that discussion, that
Thought we did that last year.
we hold the easement, but someone else does the monitoring?
No, we remember.
In here.
No, that's a good question. I don't think we did any,
Yeah.
to the best of my knowledge, we did not do any monitoring on that property last year.
I'm sorry, which property? I didn't hear.
This is the Silverman Schneer property.
Oh, okay.
Which is out at the end
Yep.
of Neal Mill Road.
Yep.
But that's a good question.
I'm going to say that that was taken over by another group.
Well,
Southeast?
yeah, we can,
Southeast?
Yeah, that sounds right. Part of the Greenway.
Yeah.
I'll look into that.
It would make sense. It's in the
Yeah,
right.
I don't think any of us did it last year.
No.
Yeah.
But it
yeah,
was
right.
done. I think, didn't we get a
Okay.
notice? Great.
Yeah, I'm not sure. My memory on such things
Mm.
is not as good as it used to be, and it was never particularly grand. Okay. Now we start to dive into the ones that are not on the agenda. First, I'd like to mention that we have a new alternate member, or an additional alternate member. Mr. Donald Tucker has volunteered to be an alternate member. He was approved as an alternate member at the August 3rd Town Council meeting. And so after he's sworn in, he'll be our third alternate. And I believe that makes our commission full. I believe we only have the ability to have 3 alternates. I'll have to check the RSA on that to confirm. But I think that would give us full membership.
First time ever, huh?
In a long time.
Next item, we received a request from Old Home Day to use the Shanda Park this weekend. The request has come from Ed Winowski. I think they're primarily using the parking area, but a little bit in Shanda Park as well. So is there any discussion relative to that?
I have no objection, but do you have an idea exactly what they would do, say, in the grass part? I'm not trying to push, I'm
No.
just curious what kind of abuse the grass might take.
Oh, yeah.
They used it in the past. Is that
Yes.
so? We
So
in
we
the
have a-
past they've been pretty good about it.
We have a good
so.
history then.
Yes, we do have a
Good,
good
okay.
history.
I'm
Yes.
satisfied.
Consistent with past use.
That works for me. Okay, so, can we have can we have a motion that we, grant permission to Old Home Day to use Shanda Park for August 13th?
So moved?
13th
Second.
and 14th, or?
Sure, 13th and 14th, let's give them both.
Second?
Excellent. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, I'll fill out one of our forms and forward that on to Ed Winowski. All right, that takes care of that one. Okay, I have been contacted, or we have been contacted, from a Boy Scout, a local Boy Scout who has made some bat houses and would like to give us some bat houses that we could put up at some of the conservation properties, or if there's other areas in town that would be appropriate, they could go there. So what I'm planning to do there is send out information to everyone on the commission related to that, and we can think about it a little bit, and then at our next meeting, hopefully decide where to put them. I think for this particular year, we're probably already too late for having bats move in.
Right.
But it might be good if we can get them up this fall so that they would be ready to go in the spring when the bats come out of hibernation.
They typically have to be put in a specific area?
Yes, well,
I mean, you just don't put them out in the wide open? Do you
the
put 'em-
desired locations are close to water, ideally south facing so that they get sun, because that helps keep the bat house warm, which is something they like. And ideally, on something that is hard for a predator, or would be hard for a predator to scale and get into the bat house. So either on mounting it directly to a tree is not necessarily a good idea. Particularly a tree with a lot of branches that,
Mhm.
that, you know, a predator could readily climb.
When you say close to water, 100 yards, 200 yards from water, okay?
Yes, I think up to half a mile.
Up, oh, okay. No.
You know, but, yeah.
So like Loisel property, I know when we did the Loisel property, talking to one of the abutters, I know, talking about the birdhouses that we put
Uh-huh.
in. You know, he specifically asked if, could you use some bat houses around the perimeter?
They have to be a certain height.
I don't, yeah, and, I don't know. We'll have to look into that. I think yeah. I think there's a minimum height. But I don't think it's, you know, I don't think you have to be 20 feet off the ground. I think 8 or something like that is ample or sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least from a, you know, kind of quick thought about it, it would seem that Piscassic River Loisel might be appropriate because there's water nearby and there's open area where they could forage for insects over the field. Wigan Farm is another possibility. You know, again, there's water readily available. There's open space that bats can fly around. And I'm not sure about others, but you know, everyone can think about it. And the bat houses are different sizes, so I'll send that information out to everyone.
Did he give you an idea on how many he built?
Yes, there is a listing of that, and I'll include that when I send out the info.
Okay.
Would an alternative, you know, given what you've said about predators, to try to find, like, stewards of the bat house where maybe, you know, they'd let us put them up on their barns or outbuildings?
You know, that's a good point, because we have lots of bats, and they're right in the barn. I mean, you just walk in, and there's tons of them up in the epitome type of
Yeah.
the roof,
Peak.
the pitch, and that's an excellent point. They really thrive there. So those kind of buildings, I think, would be good.
Lots of old barns
The-
throughout town.
I would say that's a possibility, I think, sure. If there's someone with an old barn who has an interest, they should feel free to get in touch with us. I think that would be the appropriate use. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm gonna say there's 5 bat houses or a number like that. You know, it's not 20 and it's not 2. It's,
But
moderate
if we
number.
know of places where there are bats congregating, does it make sense to try to increase that population by locating houses there?
My sense is, and it's just a personal opinion, that, you know, if you have a thriving community, it'd probably be good to just leave it alone. It's just a personal
Try to
opinion.
find
There's no,
one.
no scientific basis behind that.
No, I think in general that's true, Fred, as long as the owner is okay with them being there. It's when you start to, if you're trying to exclude them from somewhere where they currently are, then it's nice to provide a bat house to provide, you know, obviously since they are there, they have what they need in that area as far as food and water and all that. So it's nice to provide them a space to continue to thrive in that area.
We welcome them because of the mosquito population.
Bingo. Yeah. Bats are also wonderful pollinators. Not
Is
so
that
much,
right?
not so much the bats in this area, but bats in general, yes, are critical pollinators, particularly in tropical areas. Okay. Next up, I sent out some information that Dwayne Hyde had sent to me. The key part of that, looking for a printout of it, and I'm not seeing one. The key part of that was a number of properties. The Nature Conservancy has worked on the conservation of a number of properties in recent times, and as a part of that, the Conservation Commission had previously allocated $5,000 towards matching grant money. And with the with the acquisition of a final property that they're working on Bald Hill Road, they will be sending us an invoice for $5,000, which is a sum of money that the conservation had committed a number of years ago as a matching grant for property conservation. So we can expect to receive that invoice at some point in the not-too-distant future. And I'll, from memory, if anyone has additional information, feel free to correct me, but I believe the properties were the easement on the McIntosh farm. The third property is the Hayden Farm on Bald Hill Road, and I'm forgetting what the first one was.
Smith property?
Oh, yeah, I think that is right. I think it was the Smith sisters' property. Yeah, thank you, Val. Yeah.
And that $5,000 is just kind of spread to all of them, or however they see.
Yes.
And I'm all for giving them the money. I didn't know if we were allowed to give money out for properties that are not within the town boundaries.
I think it was part of the grant
Thought it had to
funding
be.
that they go for, and they can match. with-
Yeah, that's right.
And they're using some of the town stuff as for administrative.
Okay.
But in answer to your
Yeah.
question,
Unless the
We
town
can't.
votes on it.
Right. That's
Right.
true, because we voted that down.
I w-
That warrant article didn't pass, and
I was
that
gonna say, there was
is
a-
something we need to bring back.
I was going to say, a few years ago, I know there was a warrant article, and I don't remember which way
Right.
it went.
That funding, our Conservation Commission funding can only be used for
In-town.
in-town
For purchase of
properties or
lands within the
projects.
boundary.
And when they did the Greenway and Newfields, there was 22 acres that were actually in Newmarket, so we got around that way, protecting that 22 acres.
We should definitely put that back on for a future agenda to put that back before the voters, because I think the reason it failed last time is people didn't really understand it.
When was that?
And we were doing it at kind of the last minute, and Ellen had done some great work on it in
Yeah.
a
That might have been,
marketing
what, 3
piece,
years
but
ago, Val?
at least.
Something like that,
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago.
Maybe longer.
Yeah. I don't
There was a
remember
change
that.
in the RSA, and then the towns had to vote.
The vote, what was the question? I think I might not have been living in.
It was relative to use of Conservation Commission funds.
So whether or not you could use them outside of the town without a town vote?
Right.
'Cause I think that it currently says you can do it as long as you get permission from the
Right.
voters.
Yes.
And I
And
think
the-
that's what we were trying to do, is have that permission so that we could expend our funds, like in multi-town
Right.
projects.
Right, yeah, it was like project-specific voting. Like, we want $10,000 to spend on this piece of property in the Newfields
There
or
were-
something.
I think there were 2 warrant articles.
Yes, there were.
Let's revisit that.
Yes.
'Cause we actually say when it failed, we were gonna bring it back on, but just have more public education and, about why we really wanted that to be passed.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one on my list is our list that Stephanie was so kind and thorough to put together for us for conservation action items and follow-ups and items for discussion. This was something that, we had talked about at our last meeting. She had seized the initiative and put this list together. I'm not sure it's sufficient for us to try and march through this list as we sit here at this meeting. So I'm looking for suggestions on how we try to use this list and, march our way through it.
Can you email it out?
Yes.
Can you do that?
It was, right?
I believe it was. yeah.
Was?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think that's how I got this.
Yeah,
I don't-
definitely. I did not print mine, so, do you have it?
I have one extra copy.
We share.
I could put this in a spreadsheet format. And then we could have a
There's a lot-
tracking
there's a lot
system.
of work.
And then maybe email
There's a lot of
that
work.
form out.
Or could we just
And then
spread
if
it
people
out?
wanna
And people wanna,
volunteer.
You can take it
right,
with
say
you
I'll
home
take
later,
charge or
appreciate
lead
that.
of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And then we can sort the list.
Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
remember
by
ever
people?
seeing it.
Puts us to shame.
I was just trying to look at to see if I could think of any ideas.
I mean, that was fabulous work.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeed.
Absolutely.
You guys came out a lot neater than mine, how come? Still learning how to print, I guess, I don't know.
And two-sided printing. What kind of conservation commissioner are you?
I have a cheap printer.
See all the stuff we think of to do?
I buy the recycled paper.
That's the only kind you get by.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the suggestion was to.
That's just a
Yes,
suggestion.
yeah, no, you're right. So the suggestion was to reformat in a spreadsheet format and then be able to, have all of us individually kind of look it over and see if we can pick out ones that we think would be most appropriate for each of us to try and address, and then we just pick away at them.
I agree.
We can
that way
periodically
we can kinda-
revisit it, maybe just to check in during a meeting about how it's
Right,
going.
right,
agree.
right. So does that suggestion make sense to everyone?
Makes sense to me, yeah.
Some people have, like, this will be more important to me, and that might be more important
Right.
to
Right.
you, so
Right.
obviously if it's more important to you, it's best to focus on it. 'cause
Right,
Your efforts will be
right.
placed.
That was a lot of work.
Yes,
That's fabulous.
yes.
That was done.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I don't want to lose it.
So we
Okay.
are,
We
we're,
should put a copy
in the minutes,
files,
in the
too.
minutes, we are recognizing Stephanie for all of that work.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, you can
Okay, so,
have, yeah,
yeah, so Val, if you'd be willing to do that, that would be fabulous. And then we will, we'll
Let's
pick
try
away
one.
at them.
unless Drew wants it back. You can try it out. You want this?
Yes, no, that's fine, Fred, you can have it. Okay, excellent. So that was the last of the new/old business that I had. Does anyone else do old business?
I do.
Yes, Bruce.
I received a call from a town person about a composter. I referred her to Fred's phone number. I was just hoping that she got a hold of you.
She did, and we've made arrangements for her to come up and pick one up
Fantastic.
Saturday, I believe it is. Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize that you had referred her.
Well, I got one.
Just for the record, we have one left after this is sold.
Kathy had her call me, and I had her call you. I hate to hand things off, but
It's not a
you had 'em,
problem. It's not a
and you've got
problem.
all the information right at your fingertips, so I did that.
It's just, I say, just for the record, we have one left and 3 rain barrels,
And
and that's it.
Cool. And the other item, I know it's not for, we got another whole month and a half to go, but the Heritage Festival, I reserved the boat. I was up to the boatyard last
Very good.
weekend. The boat is reserved,
Thank you.
ready to go. They sold my boat, so I'm not really up there all the time. But I think I think we get the same prices we got last year.
Right.
And they've been great all along. So I try to mention their name as often as I can.
What's their name?
Oh! Faye's Boatyard in
where are
Guilford,
they?
in Guilford
Guilford.
on Lake Winnipesaukee. So, they've been very good to us. Jeff is a fantastic person over there. So that's a go.
Great.
Printed out tide charts just so that you guys can, I'm hoping Win will volunteer his services like he has in the past and help me out with the piloting of the boat.
I'll go get it.
But other people, we're gonna need to man the kiosk. Saturday, the boat ride, it looks, if I interpret these tides right, we should be able to start riding at between 9 and 9:30 and go all the way till 3.
And the date,
great.
the date on that, Bruce?
The dates are September 24th and 25th. And Sunday, possibly a little later, but it looks like, 9, maybe 9:30 to 4 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So we should have some good times.
Yeah, I went online.
If everybody else can get the weather to cooperate, it'd be great. And we should be able to really put out a lot of rides that day. This is how I printed it when I went by the Swampscott River.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, that's how you do it.
Perfect.
I think I did Dover, but yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, it's gotta be close. That's why I say it's
It's
either
perfect.
way a little bit.
Yeah, perfect
but
timing on that.
I think that's gonna be really, really good timing this year.
No.
So watch it'll poor cats and dogs.
No,
Two
Not both
things
days.
related to that.
No,
If-
we won't let
if
happen.
Dave's Boatyard has a little sign or something that we could put on the boat, or that they could put on the boat, I would certainly be open to having that on the boat. I mean, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, we never have before, but
Well, I'll ask
You
him.
can ask him, yeah.
He does have.
You can't,
every time I've been there,
They've-
pick
they've
it up
been-
and take it back, that place is busy. Can't believe it.
and they've been very good to us.
Yes.
And he's been, I've had a boat there for more than 12 years, so. It's never let me down.
Yeah, that's great.
I can pick it up Friday.
And just as an FYI, I know that I will not be available that weekend at all. I will be out of town that weekend.
Well, the next meeting, we can talk about actual
Right.
scheduling, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Yes, very good point.
If anybody's
Wholeheartedly
gonna,
agree.
Schedule a wedding or anything, postpone it.
I'm going to one that weekend, actually.
Postpone it so we can have that weekend.
Unfortunately, I'm like Drew. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be out of town that weekend, and I do have the tents, and those.
So we'll have to make
Coordinate
arrangements.
that.
So you need to make arrangements to set those up.
You do that at the
And,
next meeting, we can set up that.
Sure. Yeah, we could do it then.
I'm taking, the next meeting is the 8th, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, based on the calendar, it looks like our next meeting will be September 8th.
Okay.
Entertaining new business?
Absolutely.
Go to the next meeting, yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to put this out there to maybe have some future discussion on, whether it's with the scholarship money in 2012 that we potentially allocate, or it could be other funds. We had talked a little bit before about maybe doing something with, the residents in town, the youth, or doing, like maybe the Discovery Camp or some environmental camp. I know we used to give out scholarships if people wanted to go to the environmental camp.
Yes.
Is that up in Plymouth or somewhere up there?
I'm not sure where it was, but we did it
but-
through the science department at the high
Right.
school.
We've got the Discovery Center right here on Great Bay, and I know they've actually had to cancel some of the programs this summer because they didn't have a big enough enrollment. And, it costs money to go, so I don't know if it's an economic situation or, but I think that if we could talk about maybe that use to have scholarship money available for our local kids that want to do local environmental camps, that might be worth a discussion.
I think that's right in line with what we're here for.
Yeah.
I know before we started doing the senior scholarship fund for the high schoolers, we did two or more scholarships to the environmental camp for the junior high school students. And towards the end, the last few years, no one was interested, and they stopped. I don't know if the school stopped doing it, but there wasn't any interest on coordinating with us for the scholarships.
So maybe we,
And that's why, I made a motion that we change it over and do a scholarship for graduating seniors. But there's no reason why we can't revisit the local Discovery scholarships like that.
maybe we send a whole classroom, in the elementary level and get the kids really interested, at that
Is it a
age.
day camp?
Yeah, they have all kinds of programs over there, all during the summer and then
I think they have the,
The Gundalo does their
Gundalo's
programs
there.
in the fall with, and I just know it's getting more and more difficult because of budgets for people to either, for classrooms to pay for the buses or, the fees to attend.
Yeah, definitely. I think we spoke about that before, about putting money out for a whole class to go. So, like you're saying.
Should we we should talk about it again, or send something over to the principal?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like there's general agreement that we think that would be a good idea. How do we proceed from where we are?
Talk to the school first.
I think you make a note to the principal of the junior high, anyway.
Or
This is our
elementary?
what
Elementary
level?
school.
Yeah.
Elementary school, that's what I meant, I'm sorry. But from there, and he can pass it on to the science, geography, whatever class they, great idea, science class.
We should probably in that note include, approximately how much money would be available to them, whether it's, because I think we had also talked about maybe using some of the money still for the senior scholarship and some of it for this. And I don't know, was it 2,000 that we had available for it this year?
Yeah.
So we should make a decision about that.
We never
maybe.
had an actual amount. We started out with the scholarship at 500 for the first 2 years. And then 1 year it didn't go at all.
Okay.
No one, so we rolled it over, and everybody thought, because of the cost of schooling,
Right,
all of a sudden $1,000 is the new
right.
like the 40 is the new 20, but 1,000 is the old 500. So we just continued it as that. I mean, we have the funds to do, it's education, so I guess you could, if they came with a request, we'd have to just vote on it.
So maybe we don't need to say anything.
If it was $200, $500, or,
That's probably fine.
I don't know that, do we need to do a motion to limit the amount, or
I would think
set
you
an
would-
amount for education? I
I
don't think
we
so.
would like them, let them know that we are open to funding a field trip or, something along those lines, and have them come to us and say, this is what we need.
I agree, to leave it open, I think would be better.
Right.
Without knowing the cost of the programs or.
Right, or how many
Yeah, how
students
many
would go,
students, right.
may change
Yep.
the amount of money.
Or they need the money just for the bus, because that's not it.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like we should draft a letter and send it around, review it, and then send it on to the school that says, we as a conservation commission think that we have some funds available for science or environmental related field trips, and if teachers have specific requests, then they should send us a request.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Is that
great.
right?
Yep.
All right, why don't I try and draft,
Thea's still there, right?
yes, he is.
Yeah, he's still there.
Why don't I try and draft a short note that says that, and I'll send it out, and then we'll review that and make corrections, changes, and then we'll forward that on to the schools. Okay, great, that's a very good idea. Excellent. Anything else under old or new business? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. You pointed at me.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?